All right, Chad, we are on a roll. Episode 2 with Jeff Deyo. Not Deyo, as Canadians might say. It's Jeff Deyo. How's it going there, Chad, in the call center? Are you enjoying the call
Uh,
center there? You got lots of
it
calls
it is
coming in?
going it's going great. Yeah, I'm working on bookings. Hello, this is Chad from 90s Worship Night. How can I help you? That's what we're doing today, and also in
Yes.
our spare time we're recording podcasts. So it is great to
Yes.
be with you, Ryan, on our 90s Worship podcast. I couldn't be more excited, for what we're doing, and our
Yeah.
guest today has
Yeah.
become a really good friend of mine over the last few years, and I would consider the public spokesperson of 90s Worship Night. So can't wait for you to hear what all he has to say.
Yes. Yeah, this guy actually can be known as someone, if not the person, who ushered in the era of modern worship. Sometimes it's like, of course, there's lots of people that were involved in the
Yeah.
rise of modern worship, but it needed like a trigger point, like a point where we're like, uh-oh, we have just stumbled onto something. It's almost like
Yes.
you're on a cliff, you stumble on a little rock, and then the whole landslide just starts to fall. And that's a little bit of what happened with this. And we're going to get to hear the story because there is some beautiful stories that come out of this that I know you know about. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, why don't we, without waiting any longer, let's just go. Jeff is on the line. Let's talk to him. This will be fun. Here we go. Well, what do you think of that for 90s worship bumper music? Hey, Jeff? It's like, there you go. I
Let's
know. Doesn't
go.
it make you want to do this?
We're we're
There we go.
we're we're, we're trying here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
That's excellent,
eventually
man.
Chad,
Excellent.
eventually Chad will lose the call center headphones and maybe upgrade his white background. But hey,
Uh,
this is as it comes.
this is grassroots, baby. That's all I got to
Yeah,
say. We're on a women of prayer here, but
yeah.
happy to be here and so excited about this episode.
Yeah, Jeff, I am thrilled to have you here, and I've never met you until this day. This is as green as it comes between you and me, but you are a legend in praise charts and in my own heart and spirit. I listen to your music, the Sonicflood days, all of that was definitely a part of the rise of something that kind of came up inside of me with praise charts. So thank you for what you have given to our history. And how does it feel being here where you are today, having this kind of story and history? What's the feeling like you have today?
Yeah, well, Ryan, first of all, man, thanks for having me on and
Yeah,
thanks for
yeah.
doing this. Just thank you for the encouragement as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to have been a part of something that you can so clearly see God doing. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's a lot of people out there, and all of us are working hard, and all of us are trying to write great music and reach people and touch people for the kingdom. And man, to have been a part of something where you just look back and say, wow, there's no way that we did that. And it almost makes you tremble a little bit to
Mm-hmm.
think of, man, if I had to rewind and try to do that again, I don't know if, and you just think about that stuff. But with God, with his
Mm-hmm.
involvement in this, as you mentioned, the timing of it, the trigger points, and how all of the world was kind of building to this moment, and we got to be a part of seeing that tipping point happen
Yeah,
for worship music, and so just incredible.
yeah. Beautiful. I wonder if you could describe for me, I'm just thinking of this, like life before this tipping point moment and life after. What looked different after things started to just unfold? Could you describe a bit of the shift that you saw happening in our world of worship music, Jeff? And then Chad, of course, you could comment as well because you're part of the story too. So love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much was different, in my
Yeah.
personal life. So you kind of have my
Hmm.
personal perspective, then you also have this kind of, okay, what was happening in the world at that time with worship music and so many good things happening. People say to me sometimes, "Hey Jeff, what's it like to have been like the father or a father of worship music,
Yeah.
modern worship music?" And I'm kind of like, I feel like all worship is modern,
Yeah.
meaning like
Yeah.
100 years ago, there was people that were. So I get what they mean, and I really appreciate those comments. It's amazing to me to have been a part of it. So, but from my personal experience, I grew up in the church, but I grew up in a very conservative segment of the body of Christ, in a sense that worship music to me was a couple of hymns that we sang on a Sunday morning, stanzas 1, 2, and 4. We never sang, stanza number 3.
Yeah.
I don't know if it wasn't written as well, or
Yeah.
just trying to
You
get
never
through
want to
it
be a third
quicker.
born. Never want to be a third born.
Never. So, but and for me, I missed a major component of, I think, what worship music is, and that is that vertical connection. As we sang songs in church, there was a great component of community, of theology, those types of things. But as we think about this modern worship change, what was happening for me is that there was this divide. There was the music that we sang in church, which I didn't have a problem with. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was fine. It's just part of the culture, right? But then there was this other music that I did as a writer, as an artist. We would create, I would listen to pop music on the radio, whether it be Christian or whether it be mainstream music, and I would go create and write. I've been writing music since I was probably 10, and just write all these different phases of writing and all this. But there was the music we did in church, and then there was the music that I did with my band. And with Sonicflood, if you were just to kind of speed right to the punchline, it's like these worlds converged. And all of a sudden, we had this realization that you could do the style of music that you love, whether it was rock, country, pop, hip hop, whatever, and you could actually exalt God and have connection with God through worship and praise. I mean, that was revolutionary to us, and we were learning it as we were doing it.
Wow. Okay, Jeff, I'm bringing up Sonicflood right now in my Spotify. Let's just look at it just to kind of like go back into the good old days. Look at this. Now, this song, this is the album I think we're really talking about, isn't it here? Is it this one? 1999.
Yes,
this is the tipping point, if you want to call it that. So look at these songs, some of which you didn't write. Now, you were standing on the backs of giant songwriters who might not even have thought they were such giants at the time, because these songs, you carried them. You brought them. Andy Park and even like, these are guys that they would look to you and go, I know, Paul Baloche, totally. Yeah. Tell us just about a couple of these songs, anything that kind of stands out as I'm kind of scanning through the list here of people or songs or memories. Yeah. What do you have?
For sure, as you mentioned, that was one of the things that defined Sonicflood, is that we took some well-known songs that were maybe a little bit more underground. I mean, some of these songs were already around the country and even touching around the world, but then we took them and we added new chords, new arrangements, new energy, some people, I've heard people call it high-octane worship or something like that, and so we were like, what if we could take these songs and add some, I don't know if it was like necessarily a youthfulness, but just like some energy and some fun. Just take the songs. If we could say, however we would like to make them sound, let's do that. And let's not hold back. Let's not, think through what is popular, what is not. Let's just make the music that we would love to make. Take these great songs, as you mentioned, several cover songs, from the Open the Eyes of My Heart to In the Secret, or we called it I Want to Know You, to I Could Sing of Your Love Forever, to Heart of Worship, those songs that either were already kind of going up or hadn't quite or something like that. but then you kind of brought those songs together with what God was doing with Sonicflood, and it just blew up, it just took up to the next level. So like if you were to say like particular one song, like for example, the song Open the Eyes of My Heart, that I remember hearing this story from Paul, how that happened, that the writing of that song happened in an altar call moment, and he describes it in a humorous way of how it was like this long altar moment. Like you're like, I've gone through every altar song I know. I've sang them all 15 times.
Yeah.
What else can I sing? So he starts singing this line, open the eyes of my heart,
Wow.
Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you, so being able to then take that song, which was originally written as a slow altar song, and be able to make it an anthem that now is like, maybe we sing it at the beginning of the night of worship, as opposed to waiting to the end. You bring the full energy. We're celebrating. That became one of the songs that we would start the night off with, so it's really amazing.
Chad, if I would say, what's a song that you can remember? I can show you the list, but what's a song you'd want to hear a story about from that? I think each of us should just share a song, and hopefully none of you take mine. So what's a song that stands out for you, Chad?
Well, first I'm trying not to spoil the docu-series episode.
Oh yeah.
So I gotta think very carefully.
Yes.
I tell you, and just say this because our big press release is getting ready to come out, I think tomorrow, about the 90s Worship Night Break Through the Stars album, which Jeff is the main feature of.
Yes.
But one of the stories on there is my good friend David Guerrero. He's a part of the album, and as we were talking through what he wanted to do, he was like, man, I got to do Heart of Worship. And the whole reason behind it was, and the same is what my thoughts were, I was aware of that song pre-Sonicflood, but the way that Jeff did that on that album made that song come alive to me and for my buddy Dave, to the point where Dave's like, I have to lead this because this song means so much to me. So I would love to hear, that story.
Jeff?
Yeah. I mean, that story is crazy. And I mean, I think we do talk about this on the docu-series, so I don't know what you want me to say, but,
it's
okay. It's a
previews.
teaser, right? Yeah, it's a little
teaser.
teaser of the story, and
Exactly.
it's an important story because I really didn't know that song that well. And one of my band members brought it to the table as we were looking through songs. Hey, there's this song that's kind of coming out of England, with this guy named Matt Redman, and he's like,
who is
this
Matt
song could
Redman?
be really good, right? And I listened to the song, I'm like, okay, I mean, sure, Well, it came to be my day to record that song. We'd already tracked all the music, and I went in the studio and I showed up early. Brian Lennox was producer, and he wasn't there yet, and he was going to be coming. So I just hit play on the record unit and started practicing. I literally had the lyric sheet in my hand.
Wow.
And I honestly didn't know the song that well, and I need to kind of practice and get ready. So I start singing, I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it. And I just broke down. I mean, right there in the studio by myself, as I'm singing this song, the Lord just started touching me. And I literally got on my knees in the studio, and I'm just like, how you have these moments where just the clouds part, and it's like you're seeing something for the first time. You're like, oh my word, we hadn't even started this worship movement thing supposedly, but I was like, we've made this about us instead of making it about God. I'll bring you more than a song, Lord, for a song in itself is not what you require, and so it just blew me away. And then we recorded the song moments later, after God had just ripped my heart out and given me this revelation of this change that needed to happen in the industry and in the church.
What a great story. I love it when stuff actually happens right in the studio. Like, you're supposed to be all ready, have all your ducks in a row, and then, still stuff is going on in you and happening in your heart. It makes it so raw and authentic, and love it.
That's the real thing, right?
The one song that I thought, it's like, you seem to just break all the rules about what you could do in church or with a worship song. Is the Andy Park one? I want to know you in the secret. We were just talking about Andy Park in episode 1. He's a friend of mine and local in this area. Just a guy on a little acoustic guitar, writing amazing songs. But I love it when people break the rules about, okay, let's just you know try something fresh here. And I feel like you stepped us forward musically as a church with that song and what you did, in almost a shocking kind of way. It was just awesome.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, and I want to give credit to my bandmates in Sonicflood as
Yeah.
well, because it certainly wasn't just me that created the music behind all these songs.
No.
I was involved, but some amazing guys in the band that really helped bring these songs to life. As we kind of, we were trying to bring our own personality and our own ideas to these songs. And so we're like, what if? And I actually just did a little a shout out to one of the guys that really impacted our ideas when it came to worship music. And it's somebody that's not known. He's a pastor who was a youth pastor at my church in Nashville, which was Cornerstone Church at the time. His name is John McKenzie. He's now a lead pastor at Hope Fellowship Church in Texas. And he was the youth pastor, and he was trying to figure out ways to bring these songs that we were singing on Sunday morning to the youth group. And so
Yeah.
he was the first one that I heard do kind of an up-tempo version of In the Secret and Open
Yeah.
the Eyes of My Heart. Now, not quite to the degree that we did it, but it
No.
was, I remember, because I was a youth worker, a volunteer youth worker at my church, and still am to this day. 31 years of volunteer youth work, and I just show up on Wednesday nights. And so, but he would play these songs, and I was like, man, this is so powerful. And so then, when we were putting songs together, I said, well, what if we took that idea and this song and we took it to the next level and did whatever we wanted with it. And some people, I mean, certainly there's been some critique, how can you do this fast rocking out song when you're singing In the Secret, in the quiet place?
Right. Yes. Like I say, breaking
Right?
the rules.
But I think one of the things that I would say to that, and when I was younger, we always called our time that we spent alone with God, we called it a quiet time.
Yes.
I don't know if you
Right.
guys called it that, or but
Yeah.
then later I heard
Devotions.
this idea of the
Yeah.
secret place, right? Which is taken from
Okay.
Matthew 6. Go
Yeah.
into the secret, close the door, and the Father will reward you for what you've done, right? In prayer and seeking Him. But what I've changed the way that I talk about the secret place, and sometimes because I want to call it not a quiet place, but I also want to say it's a quiet time, but sometimes it's a loud time. Like for me, I want to celebrate and dance. I
Yeah.
want to worship God. Sometimes I'm on my face, quiet before Him, being still and knowing that He's God. Other times I'm dancing in my living room. And so I think this is the idea of this song of connection with God was more a spiritual, still and quiet place, but a time when you're just alone with God. And so I don't know.
Hmm.
It's just so
It's good.
powerful, as you said,
Yeah.
to be able to break the rules and bring this song, and people go, "Are we allowed
Hmm.
to do this? Is this legal? Are the
Yeah.
worship police going to show up?"
Seriously. Yeah. I love it. Okay, Chad. Just let's talk about the Breakthrough the Stars, because that is the lead line of this new album. I mean, I've got it here on Praise Charts. I'm so proud to have it. Worked on these charts myself, as I was telling. This is the 90s Worship Night album, Breakthrough the Stars. But Jeff, you got to showcase on this title track with All Who Are Thirsty. Chad, you want to tell us a little bit about what you feel like Jeff brought to this album and to this song?
Yeah, well, I had the idea when the decision was made to kind of, try to put out a record like this pretty well
Mm-hmm.
as a compliment and a celebration to the launch of the docuseries, which still is not out, but hopefully soon. But this album is really leading the way. It will be out soon. It will be out soon. Uh, but I was just like, man, I gotta twist Jeff's arm to try to be on this project because I just thought it would be awesome.
Mhm.
And I was kind of hoping I didn't want to like I really wanted him to have free creative control on what he wanted to do. But my thought was like, wouldn't it be cool if we did something that almost sounded like we went in a time machine, grabbed the 1999 version of Sonicflood and brought them to 2023 when we
Hmm.
recorded this, and that's pretty well, honestly, kind of what happened. Which is so cool, and I'll never forget. I was down. My wife and I were in Sarasota, Florida, doing a ministry weekend down there. And I was in. I can specifically remember being in the hotel room, get this text from Jeff, and he's like, "Hey, check out this little voice memo. It's very rough, but let me know what you think." And it was the first time I heard that bridge of breaks through the stars, and it's like
Okay.
sometimes, Ryan, you know how it is, like, well, let me listen to this about 5 times and then I can give an opinion. It was just like
Mhm.
literally the first listen, I'm like, wow, this is fantastic, this is exactly what we needed, to really spearhead this album. And it was really from that moment it was kind of circulating, in my mind of maybe we should call this album "Break Through the Stars" because obviously it's the title track, part of the song that Jeff's the main feature on. But also I just thought there were so many kind of undertones of what we're trying to do with this project,
Hmm.
and kind of breaking through the, I guess, if you will, stardom, as Jeff was talking about, and really just getting back, to pure worship. So
Yeah.
to me, that's what the song means. But Jeff could definitely dig a little deeper as to how it all came about.
Yeah. Love to hear it, Jeff.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting this whole story and how this came about because it's over a bunch of months, that Chad and I were getting together, and it started with you. You came to North Central, and we, the first time you reached out to me, I'm thinking, who is this guy? Why is he asking me to do this thing? Is this real?
Fair question. Very fair question. Yes, I
I'm
came
still
from
But
asking
it
from
that.
turned out that it was.
obscurity,
It
straight from
turned out that it
obscurity.
was
This
real,
happened.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so, but then you came back with the idea of doing a song, and I'm like, okay, that could be cool. And there's part of me later. I didn't really think about this right away, but I was thinking, gosh, I should have done a song of mine. Like I should have done like "You Are Good" or "Bless the Lord" or something like
Yeah.
that came out during. But that technically was 2001, so that
Yeah.
might not have
That's what I
qualified.
was thinking. That's why I didn't suggest that because trying to be true
Yeah.
to our '90s
Yeah.
origin here. So
Well, and I do really feel that God was in this. I do really feel that God was leading me to do this song. I remember you sent me like two
Hmm.
or three different ideas, and
yeah,
this was the one that I was like, okay, I think I could bring myself because I need to make sure that I could be authentic. I
Yeah.
think I could
Yeah.
sing this from a heart that really means this and desires. Because there's a big part of me that I like talking about how so many are in the desert and they're not drinking in fellowship with God, and so they need the springs of living water, and so come and drink, all who are thirsty, and all that. So that was a
Hmm.
natural thing for me to be able to sing about and talk about. And so as we were working on the arrangement, I wasn't necessarily thinking, I suppose it's just natural this happens, but I wasn't necessarily going, okay, let's see, I need to make a Sonicflood version of this song. I was just
Right.
like, let's make music that we enjoy. It was the same thing.
yeah.
So I got with my buddy Zach Fody, who helped produce this thing, and we went to his studio and started knocking stuff out, and we're bringing modern sounds and trying to create something. And one of the interesting parts of this, and I've had several comments on this, is that most versions of this song are 6/8.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know. I assumed we were going to do a 6/8 version, but then we started listening through all the other versions that are out there, and I heard a couple that were 4/4, and I was like, oh, that's kind of different.
Hmm.
I like that. And I think one of the 4/4 ones was very slow and down and all that. So I'm like, okay, this could be something unique, and it felt more natural to me to sing it that way. So did that. Then I was sitting at home one day, kind of just going through the song, just trying to think through, and I started singing this melody on the piano, and started literally just singing "Break Through the Stars" and "Come Touch My Heart with Mercy," and it was just I don't know. It just felt like the Lord was on that. And so I brought it to my buddy in the studio and I'm like, what do you think, man? We could maybe, because the song is simple enough that we could add, simple in a good way, that we could add something to it. And so, but I was like, I don't know if I even have permission to do that. Is Chad going to be upset, or is this going to be like mess up the song? Or so we just started messing with it and went with it. And like you said, then I send you that voice memo, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't know what he's gonna think. He might just say, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So, but then it just became a thing, and it became a part of this song now, as opposed to me, it does feel that way. It feels like it wasn't just, let's just kind of chop this in here and do this, but it feels like it's a part of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Can we do
absolutely.
just go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it really fits that theme, just as Jeff described. I mean, my whole approach, Ryan, to Night's Worship Night has been, I'm just going to give enough space for the Holy Spirit to move and to follow the Holy Spirit. And that's every step of the way. That's what it's been, and that was my approach to this album. I didn't even go in. I mean, honest to God, did not go in with any sort of preconceived idea of what the track listing would be. I'm like, we're going to do this album. The Holy Spirit's going to put it together. And that's why I was kind of like, Jeff, have free reign, and whatever you felt led to do, make it happen. And this was definitely a perfect instance of that happening. And wow, the fruit of that is just so amazing.
Yeah. But Jeff, you also in this song certainly layered up on a giant that we would all think from the 90s, Brenton Brown. I just thought it would be good to do a little shout out to Brenton and the influence that he brought certainly to this whole movement and era, bridging from the Vineyard days and then Integrity and songs like certainly that came along, like Everlasting God, and all of that was after the 90s. But tell me, Jeff, what would be your impression of a guy like Brenton Brown? Do you have any thoughts as to what he brought to the stage of our worship?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, I mean, I think part of it is we deal with our own insecurities when it comes to stuff like this. And I've always wrestled with, my role in this in a sense that, there's been a part of me that's like, I've always wanted to be the songwriter person. And I've written some songs that have gone places, but I feel like the Lord really had me in a more specific role as a deliverer of songs, which I'm fine with and I'm happy with now. But there was tension for me back, in the day, and so I feel like Brenton, I mean, certainly is both as well, but certainly is one that put songs out there that weren't necessarily put out as an artist, but more as a worshiper and songwriter that then other artists took and brought to a whole nother level, whether it be Chris Tomlin or whoever. So
Lincoln Brewster, come on. He brought that one to the table, right? Everlasting God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I'm amazed by guys that are just sitting in their, office or bedroom or studio or whatever it is. And they're just, like you mentioned, Andy Park, but I think Brenton is one of those guys that really shaped our language for worship in those times.
Yeah. Yeah. Chad, do you have any thoughts about Brenton? Has he come across your path as you've done this whole journey in the episodes? And
I mean, Brenton's another one who's become a good friend just through this whole process, and it took me a very long time to track him down. He is an elusive fellow, but once we connected, I mean, he's been one of the biggest cheerleaders of 90s Worship Night, and we had a wonderful interview that will definitely be a part of the episode that we're doing about the Vineyard movement, John Wimber, and so forth.
Yeah.
But it was through that, interview that I really discovered. I mean, I'd obviously known about the song "All Who Are Thirsty," but I didn't realize how important it really was to Brenton and the story behind it, and how it really was, again, a God moment, just as Jeff had described. I mean, there's just certain songs from the 90s, especially, where it was really kind of just a supernatural, divine download into the individual. who wrote it. And that was one of those songs. And my theory is, or has been, if we kind of chase those narratives with what we're doing 90s worship night, we're going to be okay, because we
Mm-hmm.
know that God was in that. And this is definitely
Mm-hmm.
one of those songs. And when I sent that list to Jeff to consider, for this album, I don't think it's by accident that that's what ended up, being there, because of that origin.
So great. Well, Jeff, thank you for all that you are pouring into Chad. I think Chad is very glad to have someone like you at the forefront of what he's doing. If I know Chad, what I can see about you, Chad, is you're reaching out for like people to come alongside of you and champion this cause, and then you work like a great team member. And so, Jeff, you're a very important person, not only as a part of the story, but now you're becoming a part of the storyteller community of all of this. So thank you to both of you. And I just wanted to show you a little quickly as we look at the resources that are available for this whole series. This website is like hot off the press, almost like barely, holding it together. There's more to come. But we're just talking about Brenton Brown, and I'm just realizing there he is, front and center of the homepage. So if you don't know what this guy, Brenton, is, that we've been talking about, there he is. And Jeff, oh, look at you, Jeff. You made the homepage yourself. So there's merch and stories and links. And then, if I do say so myself, we've got not only all who are thirsty with all the beautiful chords and the 4/4. Look at there's the 4/4 right there. It's gonna throw you all off.
Detail, Ryan.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
there you go. But then we got the whole album, lots of great songs, links to back into 90s worship night, and this is all gonna grow inside of Praise Charts. So I'm gonna be tracking with you. It's a story that is unfolding. And Chad, this is episode 2 in the tank. I think it was a good one. This was really fun. Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was
Thank
a privilege
you so much,
to have
Ryan.
Jeff be along for the ride. And Jeff,
Yeah.
what are some closing thoughts maybe you have just of the project and what we're doing and kind of where you see things going?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just amazing for us to be able to bring these artists back together too. And I know there's more ideas and dreams of potential, worship nights. You guys are already doing some, but could that expand and bring some of us together?
Yes, it
in
will.
the future? I think that would be amazing. It's been fun. It's just been a blessing. And I'm going to say this too, that Chad, you have been a personal encouragement to me. We just celebrated 25 years of Sonicflood last month, February 1999. And, that's a long time ago. And so, but for you to be able to come along and encourage those of us who are part of some things. I mean, we're still doing great things, and I'm still out there singing and making new music and all that stuff. But you have been a big encouragement to me. And I know that you've been an encouragement to all these other people as well, who are part of the docuseries and a part of the album. So I just think it's a special thing that God has his hand on. And I think people want to be a part of this. The people who are alive and listening to this music, and then their kids and their kids, we're bringing it forward to a whole new generation. So thank you, Ryan, for having us on. It means a lot to me. And thank you for what you're doing with Praise Charts.
Yeah. Chad, I just checked the calendar. I didn't even realize this. We have Brenton Brown on the calendar. In a couple of days. It's going to be you and me. I mean, this is the life. This would be everything I ever dreamed. Sit at my desk in my office and just talk to heroes of, worship. So thank you, Chad, for bringing me into this world. Thank you, Jeff. Everyone listening, please continue to like, subscribe, do all that social media stuff to just stay with us on this journey. We got lots of stories to tell in the future. This is Ryan Dahl, Jeff Deyo, and Chad Gentry coming to you from the 90s Worship Podcast. Next show is coming up soon. Here we go.